I've always been kind of interested in coding. I had those elementary classes, way back. It was like the block coding and like the Minecraft and make a little game. I thought that was kind of cool. I guess I didn't care too much, but I've always been kind of lost in like what I wanted, to do with my life exactly, right? So that's a pretty big ask. As a kid, I thought being a firefighter was awesome, but growing up is realizing that it's a pretty fucking dangerous job, right? And I'm unfortunately too scared to take on that task. But I did kind of know what I wanted from a young age. I wanted to be an artist. Ever since I was little, I would draw and come up with these crazy characters, like wizards and a lot of fedora wearing characters. It was 2016ish when I was really creative, and fedoras are popular. I will say. And as I got older, I drew more and I just kept on drawing, and I had big sketchbooks full of my drawings and characters. But I started to notice something. My classmates, my friends, their drawings started getting pretty good, I guess to say. We all have those like artsy kids or like artsy girls in your class that are drawing like anime characters and shit, and it looks great, like for your age, I guess, right? And that's kind of what's happening to me. But as I kept drawing, as we both kept drawing, I guess, me and my peers, my progress started slowing down, but theirs kept on getting better and better. And it kind of ramped up in high school, where there was a shit ton of talented people. I'm not even gonna lie. There was a lot of really good artists, even just as a freshman. And that freshman year is really when I really lost that love for art. I gave up, pretty much. I mean, it seemed like everybody was, miles ahead of me, and, looking back, the gap wasn't as big as I thought it was, honestly. I mean, I don't know. I probably could have applied myself more instead of just sulking, but it's whatever, right? It's already in the past, But, at this point in high school, also, that kind of sulking was short-lived, since at that point I started using Twitter a lot, and I just started seeing like a lot of different artists and like online art, and I thought it was really cool. Honestly, a lot of it was super awesome. One of my favorites. I really love like Gen C and like T-Pack and Stratomeyer. Those are probably my top 3 artists on Twitter. I really love their art. It's very influential to me. I would share it, I would like it, I would save it. It really inspired me, and I gave myself a goal, a personal goal. Like one of the only goals I've ever really given myself was, by the end of my senior year, I wanted to be able to draw. By this, obviously anyone can really draw anything if they really wanted to, right? But what I meant, if I have an idea in my head, I want to draw my character eating a sandwich. Now, it doesn't have to be like the most perfect, like an amazing professional thing, but like at least a rough idea of like my character eating the sandwich. I should be able to draw that, And in my second semester of my sophomore year in high school, it was like a January morning, like January 7th or some shit like that. I remember vividly. I just brought out a sketchbook because I saw some drawing on Twitter and I really liked it, and I kind of copied it, and like I just got so inspired, and I started filling this random notebook of mine with drawings and all these new characters. I will admit, my old characters that I had were kind of just copies and remixes of already existing characters, but these ones were actually new and they're original, and that was different, and that was really special to me. I had found my passion again. It was honestly kind of great. And one thing I'll say is that it's good to set goals for yourself. I don't think you should ever live without a goal, at least one goal, even if it's small or big, whatever. But sometimes setting goals can be kind of a dangerous trap, especially if you kind of use it as like a scapegoat, I guess. If you set a goal for yourself, oh, I'm gonna lose all this weight by 10 years. Obviously, that's like you're giving yourself a lot of time, right? And that's giving yourself a lot of time to just like not take it super seriously. And that's kind of what I did. I just thought, it's not that serious, whatever. I'll future me will figure it out. That's kind of how I've dealt with a lot of life. It's just the me tomorrow will figure out today's problems, right? And I don't know. doing this kind of honeymoon phase of drawing, I felt really happy. You know, I cultivated these characters and I made them a world. I had dreams to tell, you know, their stories, right? I wanted to tell them shows or comics or games, you know, sequels, prequels, fucking spin-offs, everything, man. I don't know, I created this entire world in my head. You know, nobody even really knows about it, right? But, you know, reality started creeping in, slowly. One thing is, I'm pretty good at, you know, blocking out things I don't like. I will say, I've gotten better at kind of dealing with that, but I improved, you know, somewhat compared to like my freshman year, but honestly the progress was stagnating quickly, and it wasn't anything crazy, you know, and it kind of hit me that my dreams weren't going to come true and I was never going to be an artist. And in retrospect, I think you really shouldn't be that hard on yourself. You should never tell yourself you're never going to do something. Because what, you fucking humans, we live to be like 80, 100 years old, whatever. I don't even know exactly, right? That's a lot of time. I was saying this when I was like 16. Okay, I had at least like 4 or 5 more of my lifetimes in me, you know? And I could easily become an artist, right? In retrospect, it's easier to say that than actually to do, right? But by my senior year of high school, I'd really just stopped drawing altogether. I kind of lost the time for it and the passion, and I gave up, I guess. I don't know, I had other things to take care of and things to attend to, relationships and whatnot. You know, college was fast approaching. It really was. And without that kind of one goal I really had was being able to draw whatever I wanted my senior year, I was kind of goalless. I was kind of aimless in life. I was honestly really scared of college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. Sometimes I still think to myself if what I'm doing is right, but you know, when the question came, what major do I want to pick? I picked computer science. I'm tying that back into the beginning, right? Sorry to kind of lead you on there, but you know, at first I picked it just to pick it. It's kind of cool, I guess. It's not super boring. It might be interesting to learn about. I didn't pick it because, you know, people say it makes a lot of money. I also picked it before I saw those TikToks, you know, saying that like computer science majors are homeless. I already kind of locked it in, whatever. But I kind of came to a realization, you know, as college, the actual college days were approaching, and I was already locked into my school. I realized that with coding and, you know, programming stuff, like, I can make art with coding. Now, I personally have a very liberal definition of art. Honestly, I just see art as anything that you just make in general, you know. To me, I think coding is art. I really do. You know, and the reason why I really enjoy it is it's logical, you know, it's precise and it's understandable. You know, it's not as abstract as just like drawing and figures and stuff. Well, obviously figures follow logic and stuff, but a lot of that stuff is hard for me to grasp. I couldn't grasp anatomy and perspective and whatnot. I mean, I understood it on a base level, but when it came to applying it is when I really struggled. I don't know. I kind of realized that I can code. You know, I can make art. That's not out of the question. I can be an artist, right? I kind of realized that, you know, and you know, and I realized, you know, it might take a while before my characters see the light of day and people will come to know them and enjoy them, hopefully, or hate them, whatever. But I guess setting a goal for myself now, one day they will, you know, and I can be an artist.